Hi garden friends, welcome to the channel. I'm Era and this is Gardening on Purpose. If you're new here, welcome, and if you're a subscriber, welcome back. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch my video. I garden in Georgia, Zone 8A. For today's video, I will be cutting back some perennials. This is a time of the year where I go into my garden and I inspect all the perennials and I look to see what needs to be cut back. So let's get started. For today, I'm just going to use either of these two pruners and this clipper guy here, depending if I need any power behind it. But I think for most of these are just going to be perennials, so the stems won't be that thick, but we shall see. One of the first things I'm going to be cutting back is the hellebore, also known as the Lenten rose. Love these, came to them late. They're evergreen for me. They are a shade plant and they do well right here, right? Now, what I like about these is that they do stay evergreen, but when the new year comes around, when spring comes around and they start coming back, they come with new foliage. So you can see this is last year's foliage right here. This is this year's foliage now, right? So I will cut these back so that the plants will look a little bit more tidy, and also it will look a little bit more fresh. All right, so as you can see, it's looking kind of rough, and all I really do is I come around the plant and I clean it up a little bit so I can see what is old and what is new. And I can see that this is old, so I'm going to take my pruner and I'm going to cut this guy in as close as I can. So here's the old foliage right here. Here's the old foliage. So these were all old, right? You can see they're burnt. They're definitely greener, right? So I'm going to take this out the bed. Now these hellebore I got from either Home Depot or I got them from my county's annual spring sale, right? So here's another one here. This one I believe is Ice and Roses. It's nice red picote. And I'm gonna cut it down. Just come all the way in and cut anything that was there last year so that the plant will look a little bit more fresh. These smaller ones here are the ones that I got from the county sale. Don't know the varieties of this one because they didn't have the varieties listed, but doesn't matter, same thing. Just cut anything that was from last year. And then this one here, and you see the difference it makes once I clear it back. Once I clear it back, you can see the difference. All right, I'm going to take these out of the bed because hellebore are toxic and they don't look that great anyway, so it makes no sense for me to keep them in the bed. But that's what they're looking like once I cut them back. Let me give you a close-up. Okay, so look at the difference, guys. After I cleaned everything up, you can see it looks really nice and a little bit more tidy. Now, you might have seen a video of mine where I went up to Growers Outlet and bought 3 more of Lenten roses. So I think I might put these in here later on in the season. They might not do too much because it's going to be the first year that they're in the ground. But still, I think when I look at these and I realize I only have like 6 hellebore here, I think just for this space alone, I should probably fill it in with hellebore. Let me know what you think. Next up are nepodas. This is Catmint, and this is the Proven Winners Cat's Meow, right? Like these because they are great for the pollinators. The bees love it, as do the butterflies. Now these is what they look like in the winter. You can see this is last year's growth. right? And right on the bottom, you can see this year's growth, right? So all I'm going to do is use my clippers and come in and just cut off last year's growth. Doesn't have to be precise or anything. I'm just cutting it off so I can clean the plant up and give the new foliage space to make their way out, right? Now, this is Nepeta. I will leave the foliage on the bed, right? Now you can see I'm raised up like I usually am, but I need to kind of I need to put some mulch around it so that it doesn't get beat up too much when we get cold again, because you know we are going to be getting another freeze before our frost date. So just come in as close as you can and cut last year's growth, and then that's what it looks like. Here's another one down here. All right, this guy here, I'm just going to come in and cut it all the way down. Sometimes their foliage is so soft, not soft, but their foliage is so slim and thin that I could break it off like this without yanking on the actual plant, right? So I'm just going to cut this all the way down until I see this year's growth, which is, you can see it a little bit in there. Now this one here, I might need to lift this up and actually have it replanted, because it looks like it's a little bit too low for my taste. And especially here in the winter when it gets wet, I don't want the plant to get damaged or drown. But you can see the new growth for this year coming up, and I'm just cutting it back. Here's one more. Again, I'm just going to move a little bit of the leaves that were there, coming close. That's what it looks like. And I'm just going to cut it off. And if I can just break it off with my hand, I'll do that too. And as you can see, look how different it looks once I did that, guys. So this is what I do every year, you know, and they seem to like it, right? And it's better for them, actually. It helps prevent diseases, especially since we're expecting to get some rain, and it lets the plant know, hey, you know, do what you do. Okay, so that is it for the Nepetas. Let's see what else we can cut back. Here's Autumn Joy Sedum. You know this is my favorite perennial. Very, very reliable for me. Now this is what they're looking like right now. You can see the old stems from last year, and these green guys are the new guys that are trying to make their way out. So what I do every year is I take my clippers and I cut this back. I might need the other clipper for this one. Let's just see if these guys will stand up to it. I'm going to go in as low as I can without cutting that new foliage. Now, they are pretty hollow, right? So the pruner is doing its thing, but I think some of them might still need the big guy. But let me just use the little guy for now. And yeah, this is great. Now, these guys here, they are sedums, and they are so cold hardy, guys. So cold hardy. Can you believe it? This thing can take down to, it can take the snow. This thing is never not having something going on with it. Even in the winter, you start seeing these smaller version of these in the ground coming up through the older foliage. All right, let me kind of get down closer to it so you can see. That's what it looks like. And I'm going to speed things up here so you can see what it looks like in the end. right, so here is a close-up of what they look like. Now you can go in further if you want, because you can still see those brown hollow stems poking out. But if you want to go down and keep getting as close to the root as you could do that. But this is what has worked for me in the last few years. So that was the Autumn Joy Sedum. Next up, we have the Agastache. Now, I don't know the name of this one, but I did get it from Growers Outlet. And as you can see this year's growth right here. This is all last year's growth. So all I'm going to do is take my pruners and cut it back. And I'm just going to go in as close as I can. And cut around it just to get off last year's foliage or last year's branches so I can see the new growth. There it is. Now, again, it doesn't have to be tidy and it doesn't have to be precise, but just for now, this is what I'm going to do with the Agastache. These guys here are going to be blooming on new wood, so it's not going to hurt it to cut it back. And just like that, that's the Agastache. I have another one over here. Show you. Here he is. There's the new growth from this year. And I'm just going to cut off last year's growth. Just go around and just cut it back. I'll do a little bit more fine tuning when spring actually comes around. But for now, for cleanup purposes and for breathing purposes, that's what I do for my Agastache. Here's the Mystic Spire Sage, one of my favorite perennials. It is blue. It is a magnet for the hummingbirds. Really, really nice. Thought this guy was an annual for me and turned out to be one of my best performers in this garden. Now, again, this is the old growth, right? I don't see much of a new growth coming back yet, but that's okay. I know it's coming. I'm just going to go in and cut this guy all the way down because it doesn't help the plant having this old foliage on it this whole time. It really doesn't, right? So I'm just going to go in and just cut it back. I might need a lopper for this one here because these are a little bit bigger. Oh, you look, I can just break it. I can just break it off. Okay, I could just break it off. And let me clear it out here so I can see. Okay. So that was pretty easy for this guy here. And because I'm not seeing any new foliage yet, I'm not going to do much. I just wanted to cut it back and I will come back to this guy later on. This is a Veronica. And again, another #1 plant for bees. They love Veronicas. Again, all these guys will come back for me reliably without a problem. And as you can see, it is so dry. Even though we got rain the other day, it is so dry. All I have to do is literally just go around and break it off, guys. Look at that. That's all I have to do. That's my Veronica. Okay, I can go in and you can see a little bit of a new foliage there, right? And a little bit in there, but it's coming. And here's another one right there. Again, I'm just going to cut it back or break it off. Just so easier to break it off if you ask me. But try not to damage the plant when you're doing that. And if you see that your plant has sunk, then take the time to possibly look into that. I noticed a couple of mine have sunk, and because I have clay, I can't afford for it to sink and stay sunk that whole time. Here's a Salvia. Salvias do really, really well in my yard. And this one here, don't know the actual, I think it's Apex Pink if you ask me. But again, this is last year's growth right here. Last year right here. And I'm just going to go in and cut it back. Easy. So if I wasn't recording, I could have done this in possibly 30 minutes. But just to show you my process. And just like that, it's all cleaned up. For bearded irises, I don't do much except I come in and I examine the plant, and if some of the foliage looks rough, I'll probably pull them off if I can pull them off. You see, that was easy for me to pull off. I'll just pull it off, and for things that I'll just maybe cut it off just to make it look good. But I won't mess with the foliage too much because, you know, they need the sunlight and they need that foliage. So the thing with this one here, it might be time to divide this guy, you know. This was one plant and now it looks like several plants. This guy does really, really well for me in the yard, guys, the bearded iris. And again, I don't have to do all this, but I will just come in and maybe just cut off the ones that are brown, right? Just cut off anything that's brown or anything that I can pull off that looks like it's easy to pull off, I'll pull off. And just like that, look how easy it was for me to clean up where the bearded iris was. Here's bee balm, this one here. Now I have to pay attention to bee balm because they don't like to stay wet, and they definitely don't like their foliage to stay wet too long. But I try to cut off their old foliage as soon as I'm able to. And as you can see, this is this year's growth coming right here. So I can just cut off all this old stuff right here. Easy, easy, easy. And I'm done. I have 2 of them. All right. And I always examine it to make sure still above the soil grade. So nothing to do with that guy. Here's the second bee balm. See? And I'm just going to cut it back. And that's that. That's that for the bee balm. Here are the daisies. Now, daisies do really, really well. And this needs a division, guys. But in the meantime, you will see this year's new foliage in there. Right? All I have to do is come out and just cut back these old stems, guys. I will do the division later on. But for now, just to clean things up, I'm just cutting the plant, clearing it out, right? And this looks like I can divide this guy into 3 different plants, guys. So that's one thing I must say. Daisies do really, really well. I never really have to buy them unless they have this wonderful variety that comes out. But otherwise, I don't have to buy daisies, and it's easy to divide. And look how easy it was for me to clear that daisy up. Next up is the famous white eye phlox. I've already noticed that I'm going to have to lift this and bring the plant above the soil grade. It has sunk. So here's a close-up of this year's new growth, and this is all last year's branches right here. Love the famous white eye phlox because it blooms so long. This is the longest blooming phlox in my yard, and it just does so well. It's a really nice white with pink. And I am seeing, you see, I know it is too low because I'm already seeing a little bit of, work going on here. So I'm going to lift it up. But in the meantime, I'm going to cut these off. And you can see it is no longer above the soil grade, which is never good in the winter. This is how diseases are caused. This is how plants don't perform well. Daylilies are pretty easy, guys. They actually, shed their stuff on their own. Now, sometimes they don't look the greatest. So this one here, I never touched it since, the season ended and everything. And slowly but surely, the old foliage actually is beginning to dissipate. So this is what they are. And all I've been doing is literally pulling it off, guys. Look how easy it is. I'm just going to go in and take my hand and just pull this off. It's not hurting the plant one bit. I'm not yanking on it too much. And that's all I do. And just like that, I'm done with the daylily, right? One of the best performing perennials in my yard. They are tough. They can take the clay and they can take part sun to full sun. Next is my Chapel Hill lantana. I will not be cutting this back, guys, because it's very iffy if this is supposed to come back. This is the Chapel Hill that's supposed to be hardy to zone 8. A lot of folks say it comes back. It doesn't come back. It depends on the winter. It's the first year I had it, so I'm hoping it does come back. Now, after I cut it a little back, after the season ended last year, I cut some of it back because it was huge, right? But then I read that you're not supposed to cut it back at all until the spring. So I hope I didn't, affected or anything, but this is what it looks like. I'm not going to touch it in this video. I'll give you an update as to if it does come back for me. All right, guys, so that is pretty much my process for cutting back most of my perennials, not all. If you have something like the Little Henry Sweetspire that blooms on old wood, you definitely do not want to be cutting that back right now. You're only cutting things that bloom on new wood. So you saw me do my Salvia, my Agastache, Phlox, Sedum, Nepoda, Lenten Rose, and there's so much more. Obviously, I did not do every single one, but just wanted to give you an idea of what I do. Let me know what you think. Please like, please share, and please subscribe. Remember, hit that notification bell so you can be alerted on all my new videos. I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.